of your screen. You probably have settings on your end that you can adjust. So if you do need closed captioning, please see the settings on your computer. I would like to now introduce Cindy Levine, who is the president of the League of Women Voters. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jillian, and thank you to the library for partnering and hosting this. Welcome back to everybody, and welcome to those who have just joined us. My name is Cindy Levine, and I'm the current co-president for the League of Women Voters. Thank you for joining this candidate forum, and we will now turn to our last forum of the day for District 203, New Trier High School Board of Education. Our moderator, Kathy Tate Bradish from the League of Women Voters in Evanston, will now begin.
Well, welcome to the newcomers to this morning's exercise in democracy. As a quick reminder, candidates have agreed to the rules. There was drawing for speaking order. They will have a 2-minute opener, 90 minutes to answer each question, a 1-minute closing statement. I may shorten the answer time for some of the questions. Candidates will only answer the question on the table, will not address each other except in perhaps glowing terms to agree with the previous answer. If there is a personal attack, which of course none of us expects, I'll stop the speaker and allow the person addressed to continue. So here we go. Candidate Alcantara will have her 2-minute, Alcantara will have her 2-minute opening first.
Hello, I am Kimberly Alcantara, one of the 4 candidates endorsed by the New Trier School Board Caucus. My husband Oscar and I have lived in Wilmette for almost 20 years. We have 2 sons who have graduated from New Trier, and our youngest son is a New Trier freshman. Each of my sons has had very different interests, strengths, and challenges at New Trier. Their experiences play a part in motivating me to give back to District 203. I also am deeply committed to volunteerism and public service. I was elected for 2 terms to the Wilmette District 39 School Board and chaired the Facilities Committee for 6 years during that time. Having been a school board member, I understand the importance of financial management, communication, and listening to fellow board members, parents, administrators, students, and taxpayers. I have also held board and committee positions with several other local organizations, including District 39's Community Review Committee, elementary and New Trier PTAs, school improvement plan committees, Wilmette Wings, and others. Professionally, I'm an attorney. I specialize in marketing, entertainment, sports, and intellectual property law. The bulk of my work involves negotiating, drafting, and closing complex contracts. The skills I use regularly in my role as an attorney lend themselves to serving on a board. In my legal practice, I need to communicate professionally and civilly, manage differences of opinion, find middle ground without compromising my client's key objectives, and work within a budget and pay attention to detail. I am running for New Trier School Board because I want to be part of New Trier's long tradition of excellence, and I want to be part of New Trier's progress in affirming its values and meeting its strategic goals. With my board service, legal practice, and experience as a New Trier mom, I'm well positioned to hit the ground running on the New Trier School Board. Thank you for listening. I hope to earn your support.
Thank you. Candidate Tomlinson.
Hi. The strong educational system of New Trier is what first attracted me and my family when we moved here in 2001. And over the last 20 years, I've watched my 2 children grow and thrive in the system. Each year they were in school, I too was in the school, sharing my time and talents, and volunteering became my way of showing my gratitude for their opportunities. Most recently, I was one of 28 members serving on New Trier's 2030 Strategic Planning Committee. I endorse its institutional values and goals, and as a board member, I will help make those goals a reality. Prior to working on the strategic plan, I spent 3 years on the New Trier Parents Association Executive Board as the editor of the Parents Press newsletter, and during that time, I completely repositioned and relaunched the publication. Academically, an MBA from Northwestern will give me the financial and analytical literacy to provide budget oversight. And professionally, the 10 years that I spent in client service at Leo Burnett Advertising honed my ability to serve many constituents, lead strategic planning initiatives, collaborate and communicate effectively, and manage multi-million-dollar budgets. As a school board member, I won't represent one constituency or agenda. I'm a parent who wants to see all children receive a world-class education and a taxpayer who understands our property taxes must be spent judiciously. I hope you'll give me the opportunity to continue to serve our community as a member of the New Trier Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dronin.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting and all in attendance today. My name is Keith Dronin, and I have served on the New Trier High School Board since 2017. My top priority is that New Trier fully resume on-site learning in a safe manner following Governor Pritzker's order to close schools last spring. I've been an advocate for increasing in-person learning, as remote learning has not been a good environment for many students. Another priority is for all students to achieve socially and emotionally, as well as academically. New Trier must continue in its efforts to create an environment where all students feel they belong. Finally, I will continue to use my extensive financial and facilities experience to promote strong financial stewardship, along with the maintenance of our facilities, such as the current Winnetka East Campus project. Ann and I have two sons who've graduated from New Trier and a daughter currently attending New Trier. We volunteered thousands of hours to our schools. I served on the Wilmette District 39 board for 8 years, including 2 years as president. In my 12 years of school board experience, I've served on just about every committee and have extensive collective bargaining experience. Currently, I serve on the Facilities Committee, the Foundation, and the Leadership Council of NSSED. Appointed by Governor Rauner and reappointed by Governor Pritzker, I serve on an advisory council that advises the governor, legislature, and the State Board of Education on issues relating to the education of children with disabilities. I mentor high school students to obtain scholarships to national universities and mentor students at Northwestern University Evans Scholar House. Professionally, I practiced law for 13 years, and now I am a financial advisor and owner of Dronin Financial Services. I look forward to serving another 4 years, and I hope to earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cho.
Hi, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for organizing this League of Women Voters. So we have 3 school-aged kids, and we were living in the city and moved to Wilmette when our kids were old enough to go to school. As an immigrant from Korea, education for my kids is the #1 priority for me. So when we were not happy with the Chicago public school system, and I'm a big believer in public school system, we moved to Wilmette, specifically for New Trier, for its school district. So with 3 kids, school is a big part of our family's life, and pandemic posed a lot of challenges that we were not faced before, which impacted many students and families, my families and my kids included. So most families in New Trier are in New Trier School District because of the opportunities for academic excellence. My educational and professional background includes an MBA and a Master of Public Policy from the University of Chicago. And professionally, I've been in roles where I identify issues, coming up with solutions that meet the needs of multiple parties that are involved. So want to make sure that New Trier is always the school that provides the highest quality of education for our students, which is why I'm running for the school board this year. And I would really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Prodromus. Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Good morning. My name is Chad Prodromos. I'm a board-certified orthopedic surgeon and regenerative medicine specialist. I have published 2 papers in PubMed indexed peer-reviewed medical journals on early treatment of COVID-19 and am principal investigator of an FDA-approved study of the use of adult stem cells for the treatment of hospitalized COVID-19 patients. I'm a graduate of New Trier East. I grew up in Wilmette and now reside in Winnetka. Our 2 daughters are New Trier graduates. I received a bachelor's degree at Princeton, MD from Johns Hopkins, internship at U of Chicago, residency at Rush, and fellowship at Harvard and the Massachusetts General Hospital. I've been in private practice in Glenview for 35 years and served as assistant professor of orthopedic surgery at Rush for 27 years. I was formerly one of 2 medical consultants to the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee of the Illinois High School Association. I am running for the school board because I think it is imperative the physician be on the board to interpret the ongoing stream of COVID-19 medical data. No other physician is running, and the physician on the board is stepping down. If elected, I would serve as an unpaid consultant on myriad COVID-19 issues, saving the school district potentially millions of consulting dollars on such issues as school opening with maximum safety, vaccine efficacy and risks, contagion, school virus air filtration systems, safe sports participation, school to community spread, early treatment, viral testing, and more. I will garner, post, and interpret COVID-19 medical studies for the benefit of the community and have already begun doing so at prodromosnt.com. I will focus on unity rather than acrimony among students, parents, teachers, and staff. As a sports medicine specialist, I will help formulate guidelines for safe athletic participation. Diversity of expertise is critical to a well-rounded board and would be enhanced by my participation. If elected, I will also serve as needed across the full spectrum of Nutria-related issues. For example, I would like to see more opportunities for student cross-participation in both performing arts and athletics, as was common in the 1960s when I attended, but was much less so when my daughters were there. But I am primarily running because I believe there is an unmet need for my expertise and believe it is my obligation as a citizen to give back to the school that has given much to me and my family.
Thank you. So we're going, candidate Das.
Good morning, everyone. Avik Das here. Thank you for this opportunity to hopefully inform and earn your support. I certainly am looking forward to the opportunity to support the New Trier strategic plan for 2030 to try to bring us back into our schools healthy, restored, and ultimately recovering any ground lost throughout this pandemic we're all enduring, with a focus on community engagement, specifically engagement with our feeder districts and all the collective wisdoms we've had through this year plus that we're going through as a pandemic. My wife, Ami, and I grew up in Glenview. We met each other in undergrad at Northwestern University. We moved back about 15 years ago to raise our daughters. We have a daughter who's a freshman at New Trier and a daughter who's a fourth grader at Avoca West. In my personal and professional life, I work towards the belief that successful childhoods lead to successful neighborhoods. And so the opportunity to serve on the school board would contribute to the success of our school, our youth, and our communities. But in addition to that, I have served over 20 years as a Cook County juvenile probation officer, serving youth and families across the city of Chicago and the community. And in the last 6 years, I've served as the head of the department, a large public service agency of 300 employees, a $40 million budget, dealing with complex situations, innovation, accountability to the taxpayer, justifying budget, trying to deal with collective bargaining. And in all of that, I bring academic experience as an attorney, also a certified circle keeper, as well as a fellow of the University of Chicago Civic Leadership Academy. In this way, I hope with your support, I can ensure that our schools remain springboards of excellence for our children and wellsprings of fellowship for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind all the candidates and viewers, you can even do this at home. If you put your cursor on the timer box, you can scooch it around so that it's always front of mind for you. I remind everyone to just keep looking at your screen. Candidate Tomlinson, you take the first question first. How do you see your role as a school board member and whom do you represent?
First of all, I think I mentioned in my introduction that I was one of the 28 members of the 2030 strategic plan. So my goal long-term is to make sure that we see those goals become a reality. I want to be clear that I don't represent one particular constituency or one particular agenda. My motivation is to see that 2030 strategic plan to its fruition. And why you should care about that is that this isn't just an administrative plan. It was initiated by Paul Sally with the help of an outside consultant. And it involved a committee of 28 people that were students, staff, parents, community members, but importantly, it reflected feedback from thousands of residents in the form of 5,000 online surveys and over 400 focus group hours. So it's not just a school plan or an administrative plan, it's the township's plan for where they want to see New Trier go in the next 9 years. You should also note that each year there are interim goals and strategies that are developed against those long range plans. And each year the staff and the administration is held accountable to those interim goals. And as a member of the board, I would make sure that we oversaw that.
Thank you. Candidate Dronen.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the role of a school board member is to provide oversight and governance, and then the superintendent and the administration is responsible for the day-to-day running of the school. With that being said, the board has a very important function in putting policies in place to make sure the vision of the district is carried out. And the bottom line, who do we represent? You know, we represent all members of communities, members with different points of view. But the key thing why I want to be on this school board is I love education and I love helping our students. And that's been, you know, the story of since I graduated from college, whether in my volunteer service, in my public life, and in my private life over at Northwestern University and with Evans Scholars. I love education and I love giving back. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cho.
I believe the role of the school board is really to provide the residents in the school district control for their education decisions. And school board has to be allies to teachers and administrators. However, I believe school board represents the students and families and the residents in the New Trier School District, including those who don't have their kids in the school anymore. So everything that we do, I think it needs to be really, really reflect the wishes and the concerns, needs, and feedback of the students, families, and the residents in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Prodromus.
The role of the school board, in my view, is to represent the community, to pursue New Trier's goals from the strategic plan and for academic excellence in general. The school board now, I think, has a overriding role in getting the school open with maximum participation, consistent with maximum safety. And that's going to be with us for a while, as has been pointed out. Remote learning has detrimental effects. Concerning who I represent, as with all the members, I would represent everybody. It's important for school board members to make sure that there are communication with the community to make sure that that is occurring.
Thank you. Candidate Das?
I'm going to echo candidate Dronin in the concept of the board member as an oversight, as a partner in terms of supporting the direction of the faculty, the experience of our students, but ultimately representing all neighbors, all stakeholders as a conduit of where they want to see New Trier go. So I may have my own personal opinions, but I certainly would recognize that the board member is nonpartisan in its approach, that it's open-minded and it's holding a space as a resource, as a public servant, to be able to support the best direction forward for our board.
Thank you. Candidate Alcantara.
Sorry. Based on my own experience as a 3-time and current New Trier parent and as a property owner in the township, I have an understanding of the different stakeholders in our community. I know that my own experience alone is not enough to serve effectively on the Board of Education. As a board member, I would seek out and work to understand the perspectives of all constituencies within New Trier, families with young children, New Trier students, parents of current New Trier students, families with children who have graduated from New Trier, taxpayers who may or may not have ever had children at New Trier or in public schools. I'm also keenly interested in working productively with all New Trier teachers and staff. That work of reaching out would enable me to be a better representative for the whole community. In my role as a school board member, I would be guided in large part by the 2030 strategic plan, which my running mate Sally played an instrumental role in developing. As Sally noted, that plan is the culmination of community-wide input and would provide the platform for oversight of New Trier and representing all constituents.
Thank you. Candidate Dronin, you're going to take this question first. How did the board and administration do this year with COVID-19 challenges? And what, if anything, will you do differently going forward? Oops, sorry, unmute. Unmute yourself, candidate Dronin.
Yeah, in hindsight, sure, some things could have been done differently had Nutrier known then what it knows now. You know, with that being said, I wish Nutrier would have discovered and implemented saliva tested earlier, even though it was one of the first schools in its peer group to do so. You know, the fact of the matter is that despite a lack of direct guidance from the Illinois State Board of Education, Illinois Department of Health, and the CDC, the district devoted thousands of hours to develop and implement a safe and comprehensive reopening plan. The plan evolved as the district said it would as more information became available from local and state health departments. Nutrier has shown leadership with respect to reopening within its peer group. For example, Nutrier and the Glenbrook schools were the first to open to in-person hybrid learning this fall. Nutrier was the first to institute surveillance testing, allowing it to focus on positivity rates within its buildings as opposed to relying on township and teacher zip code positivity rates. And Nutrier is one of the few high schools in its peer group to be open between Thanksgiving and Martin Luther King Day. You know, going forward, resources must be devoted to all students. Many have struggled due to the pandemic. And finally, the district needs the cooperation and the continuing support of the entire community as we get closer to exiting COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cho.
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. How did the board and administration do this year with COVID-19 challenges? And what, if anything, will you do differently going forward?
I think the decisions that were made for the students and families frustrated many students and families and really impacted these families and students in a lot of ways, not just academically, but mentally, emotionally, and socially. Kids did not have the time and opportunity to even see their friends. And I don't think we, our Nutrier board and administration assess the situation of cost and risk and the benefit accurately. Going forward, I would like to see school safely taking all the necessary safety measures, but opening it fully. I don't mean we force it to everybody. We still should have the remote option for any students who opt to do classes remotely, but we should have the choice to provide a choice to everybody who want to have in-person classes full-time. That should be available, that should be an option. And we can take the necessary safety measures, and many schools have demonstrated by now, and we can implement that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Prodromus.
I agree with candidate Cho's statements. In an abundance of caution and with well-intentions, the schools were kept closed much longer than they needed to be. We have abundant data from medical studies, which we have. Some of them are on our website showing that schools can be opened both here and overseas. There are multiple studies showing contagion in the community or the lack thereof. Parents are pulling students out of public schools and putting them into private schools that are open. So while everyone is well-intended, the schools could have and should have been opened more fully sooner and can be going forward safely. The risk to students approaches zero. The risk to high-risk people around the students is substantial, and those people must absolutely be protected. I am conversant with all this data, and if on the school board could help shepherd the school toward full opening consistent with complete safety.
Thank you. Candidate Das.
Thank you. I'd like to come alongside candidate Cho's observation of a commitment to a full opening with the options needed for remote learning. I also want to commend and come alongside candidate Dronin and as an incumbent and the board and administration for attempting to build a plane while flying it through the pandemic. That is to say that as an administrator of a large organization in the juvenile justice system, facing unprecedented situations where we had to close down courts, deal with services to the public, along with lots of employees and where we have to go to keep everybody safe and healthy, there's a lot of learning that had to happen on the fly. And I think that I would bring to the board a lot of large scale thinking about how best to address all the humans involved in a given service delivery for this public service that is education, with an eye towards full reopening and giving ourselves the best chance to reopen with high quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Alcantara?
I think New Trier has been very adaptive in transitioning to remote, hybrid, and in-building instruction throughout this fluid and unprecedented pandemic. My youngest son, as I mentioned, is a freshman at New Trier. Remote and hybrid learning for him has been a struggle. Despite the challenges, when I speak with him, he is adamant that there's nothing additional New Trier could do to improve remote and hybrid learning. New Trier teachers are performing their best with an instructional model that has never been delivered and is incredibly difficult to execute. My sense is that most students perform and feel the best when they are in school with all their peers and teachers. And I hope and fully expect we're on our way to a return to social and instructional normalcy. If we had access to all of the cumulative research, guidance, and tracking information that we now have back in August, and if saliva screening could have started earlier, then students could perhaps have been in the building at a higher capacity from the outset of the school year. Of course, this would also have required the state to have modified its criteria on 6-foot social distancing and capacity much earlier. It's important to note that as a public school district, New Trier adheres to the Illinois Department of Health and Illinois State Board of Education requirements. It wasn't until March 9th, just over a week ago, that ISB reduced in-school social distancing requirements to 3 feet and removed capacity-based restrictions. So as we consider a hindsight-based do-over of District 203, we need to keep in mind the external factors that would have needed to change as well in order for in-person instruction to have increased earlier.
Thank you. Candidate Tomlinson.
In dealing with a novel virus with no previous data to draw from in a rapidly changing environment, here's what I think New Trier delivered. I think they revised the curriculum to remote and then hybrid, and then they introduced a shift to a block system. They created a safe environment that had to adhere to state guidelines, as Kimberly mentioned. They led the way in their innovative use of saliva testing, as mentioned by Keith. They provided academic and social emotional support to students. They established a reopening advisory board, which was comprised of health experts, parents, teachers, staff, and board members. And they did all this by consistently and comprehensively communicating with all the stakeholders involved. If I benchmark New Trier against other schools, as Keith did, I still have not found a school that we can learn from, and I would want to explore that further to find out if there were some lessons learned that we missed. That said, I think this pandemic has taken a huge toll on our kids' mental health. So for me, going forward, I think there's an opportunity for New Trier to provide more social and emotional support for the students. I think we have to look for ways to promote greater connectedness among our 4,000 students, and if there's a way for us to mobilize them to better help support one another. And I think New Trier is going to have to reevaluate its mental health services, the network of resources it makes available to students, and how it's communicating to parents and students about them. Even though we seem to be winning the battle against, COVID, I think there's going to be more.
Thank you. I was almost there. So I'm going to make this next question a 1-minute answer. It's a little bit complicated, but I know you can do it. I'll ask the question, give everybody a second to think about it, and then we'll start. What are your top 3 priorities for New Trier High School after COVID-19? So think about what your top 3 priorities are. You don't have to tell us how you're going to fix them, but just how you're thinking about it. Top 3 priorities, and candidate Cho, you take this one first.
So for me, the top 3 priorities are obviously at this point in the fall, going back to school in person fully. Again, for those families who don't feel comfortable, who choose to do it remotely, we should have that option available. But for all the families who want to participate in person, we should be able to open fully in person, not just for in-person classes, but also for performing arts and athletic programs. Secondly, I think we really need to focus on academic excellence based in math, science, and English, as well as critical thinking abilities. So most families, again, who come to New Trier, we don't come to New Trier because we want to pay higher property tax. We come to New Trier because we want to provide our students, our kids, best, highest quality educational opportunities. So I really want to make sure that our goal is really set to make sure that we ground our educational program in math, science, and English and critical thinking abilities. And then the last is, I want to make sure that there is an active and ongoing two-way communications with our community for the board members, so that we are constantly, when we're making decisions, it is always reflected in our decision making. I don't know, I can't see the timer, so I don't know if I'm going over or not.
I'm good. Let me actually stop you. You were not going over, but I misread the question, and I've just been reminded in the chat that I was supposed to say after COVID-19. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give you 30 more seconds to adapt your answer to after COVID-19.
So after COVID-19, okay. So then another priority then would be, which is, I believe my skill sets will bring in a great asset to the school district, is we need to have a system where we can assess and evaluate effectively any kind of further unanticipated problems and be able to come up with solutions to the problem.
Thank you.
That would be my third one.
You did well, given that I interrupted you right in the middle. Thank you. Candidate Prodromus, same question. Let me read it again so that I get it right. What are your top 3 priorities for New Trier High School after COVID-19? 60 seconds.
With all due respect to the good question, there isn't going to be a fully after COVID-19 for a long time. Between variants and other issues, we're going to be dealing with COVID for a year or 2, maybe longer. So after COVID-19, meaning when we open fully, perhaps, it is very important that going forward, we establish a way to get conversant. And again, this is what I bring with the medical literature to know what we can safely do so that we stay open, and when future variants, other matters come up, we're able to deal with them without shutting down. Secondly, re-engagement of students. The students are disenfranchised. Many have suffered. Get them back, evaluate them. Third, healthy habits. Healthy habits decrease susceptibility to the virus. We're all living less well with quarantine. We need to address healthy lifestyles among our students and our community.
Thank you. Candidate Das.
I build this question from the after COVID to the idea of an entire school that might be reopened, but really I'm coming to the 3 priorities around how are the humans doing in a world where the school is reopened. I come from it from how do we find our way back to each other, and I'm looking at doing an assessment around wellness, the health of all the folks that are coming back into our schools, how we reach out to each other. I'd be looking at where we've lost ground on our strategic plan, and with a specific eye towards the well-being of our students and how the education environment is receiving them in a world after COVID. And then I would be looking at all the collective learnings of our district feeders and making sure that we understand where they stood relative to the New Trier school system and how they encountered the crisis that we're all trying to recover out of. And so it would be very much about a restorative healing piece focused on our well-being.
Thank you. Candidate Alcantara.
So first, re-entry. Students are going to struggle as they tackle re-entry after being back after a year of being hybrid or remote. So I'd encourage the administration to assess our students' academic growth and deficits, examine social and emotional issues, and plan how to overcome those deficits and challenges. Next, critical thinking. New Trier's strategic plan embraces the idea that personal growth best occurs when a student reflects and thinks critically to make choices. So I'd encourage the administration in its progress toward a learning environment centered on an understanding of a diverse set of backgrounds and perspectives. Students need to be able to make logical arguments in which evidence leads to a conclusion, how to test those arguments for validity, soundness, strength, and weakness. And finally, it's paramount for the board to adopt a fiscally responsible budget. We must be mindful of budget pressures, and it's imperative that board members be cognizant of those issues, recognizing that achieving the goals set out in New Trier's 2030 strategic plan depends on a stable budget and resources for implementation of that plan.
Thank you. Candidate Tomlinson.
I'm going to draw from some results from some polling that we've done in the community through the 2030 strategic plan. And we asked the community what they prioritized over the next 4 or 5 years. And one area that comes out on top is hiring and retaining high quality staff. If you look at our budget, 80% of our operating budget goes towards staff and benefits. And I think it's going to be important to continue to recruit and retain high quality staff. And then I want to talk about supporting students' social emotional needs. These kids have experienced a lot of loss through the pandemic, and we need to figure out a way to continue to support them. And then I'd like to spend more time working with the administration on creating a stronger school culture and more welcoming climate.
Thank you. Candidate Dronen.
3 points. First, every student should have access to rigorous and rich curricula and inspiring instruction. That would be my first. Second, New Trier must provide resources for all students to achieve socially and emotionally as well as academically, especially following all the issues we've had with remote learning and students falling behind and mental health issues. And then finally, as a board member, it's important to provide oversight regarding New Trier's strategic plan that was developed with significant community input. And part of that is the facilities project. And part of that too is a financial oversight. And an example for financial oversight would be we hired 5 COVID experts, and the cost to date on that great advice has been about $18,000. That has not been in the millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Prodromus, you take this question first. I don't know that we'll need all the time, but I'll give 1 minute for this. How are you funding your campaign? Are you supported or affiliated in any way with a PAC or super PAC? And if so, please explain the nature of your affiliation.
I'm supported by no one. The money that I've spent is my own.
Thank you. Candidate Doss?
I am entirely self-funded.
Thank you. Candidate Alcantara?
Yes, I am also independently supporting and financing my campaign, and I'm not affiliated with any PAC or super PAC.
Thank you. Candidate Tomlinson?
Even though I am one of the 4 caucus endorsed or slated candidates, and we have run our campaign together, each of us has only contributed our personal money to that campaign effort.
Thank you. Candidate Dronen?
Self-funded.
Thank you. Candidate Cho?
I have self-funded, and then I have some friends of my own who support the idea and my platform and have given me some of their contributions.
Thank you. I'm trying to squeeze one more question in. Just don't have a good quick one. They're all important. Let me give 30 seconds. Knowing how inadequate that is, what are your priorities for your term regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion? Candidate Doss, you'll take this first. What are your priorities for your term regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion? Just 30 seconds, please, timer.
I have a commitment to promoting a welcoming environment that supports all students and staff, reflecting a community vision that no voice goes unheard. We do not presume that the unheard voices and unmet needs are a burden to our organization, but an invitation to the gift of our expanding the many bridges that connect us, help us find our way to each other, and keep our community growing stronger together.
Thank you. Candidate Alcantara?
At New Trier, no student should be made to feel unwelcome or as though they don't belong. New Trier's plans to live these values include recruiting and retaining staff members of color, supporting marginalized students with affinity groups and by amplifying restorative justice efforts, and making sure the curriculum provides both a mirror of our students and a window into different world experiences. In-class tactics toward these goals may include special advisory sessions and in-school seminars. I'd also advocate for data collection to measure success using tools like New Trier's annual climate survey, the youth risk behavior survey. These steps are vital to New Trier's delivery of excellence in education and continued progress.
Thank you. Candidate Tomlinson.
The 2030 strategic plan sets an expectation that all people feel welcome, respected, supported, and valued so that students can learn more effectively. So in an effort to create that environment, I would hold the administration accountable to how it recruits and retains its staff, how they identify and support underrepresented students, and how they hold students and staff accountable for their actions, and then how they communicate their expectations to the stakeholders. It's a really important concept.
Thank you. Candidate Dronen?
New Trier must continue its efforts to create an environment where all students feel they belong, no matter what their race, religion, academic level, sexual orientation, gender identity, or special needs. New Trier has made progress in various ways. For example, students with special needs have programs like High Five Choir, where they are buddied and participate with general education students at choir performances. Supporting marginalized students is a top priority through restorative justice efforts, participation in affinity groups, and more advisory chair and staff training. And then multiple perspectives can be explored through curriculum and X-block scheduling.
Candidate Cho.
I think New Trier has a growing number of immigrant families in the community. I think starting with having a board member who is an immigrant, an ethnic minority, and a woman will start that talk of the conversation of having more inclusive and diversity in the community really effectively. As an immigrant, I came to this country at the age of 16. I really know and understand and have experienced what it's like to be an immigrant and a minority in this country as a student as well. So we have a number of students who are immigrants themselves, and I think we can effectively implement that.
Candidate Prodromus.
I believe that most members of the New Trier community, parents, staff, students, are well-intended, warm people who believe in diversity and are welcoming to other students. However, when that isn't the case, I think it is important for the administration to focus on those instances and take corrective action. And I think there is virtue on focusing particularly on episodes and areas where lack of inclusiveness and bullying and such are found, so that those areas can be focused on more strongly.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to go into closing statements now. We'll begin with candidate Doss and actually go in reverse order, so you'll have an opportunity to not follow exactly the same person you've been following all hour. I remind you all that you have 1 minute for your closing statement. Candidate Doss.
Thank you. As we continue with Women's History Month and its theme of valiant women of the vote refusing to be silenced, I would like to recognize the League of Women Voters, the women on the ballot, in our communities and in my life, the life-giving, female identifying whole. Thank you to all women who make our civic spaces so strong and lead us by example. I hope I can make my wife, mother, and daughters and you proud with your support for my service on the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Prodromus.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. The months and years ahead will be challenging on a number of fronts. I am passionate about devoting my fullest energies to serving New Trier. I own my practice and have complete freedom to prioritize school board work. As I mentioned, my website, prodromosnt.com, already has numerous COVID-19 scientific articles posted that are of relevance to the community, along with interpretations of technical jargon where needed. Relevant endorsement letters are also posted. Both sides of issues are presented. Politics is absent. I welcome any inquiries, feedback, or other communication with the community, which can be effected through the website. If elected, I will serve New Trier, but also the greater New Trier community. Ours is an erudite community. And as I say in my website, I believe in unity and informed decision-making through science to foster the New Trier mission to commit minds to inquiry, hearts to compassion, and lives to the service of humanity.
Thank you. Candidate Cho.
Thank you for this opportunity. It really has been an honor and privilege. So I really strongly believe the school board is a representative of the students, families, and the residents in New Trier. And I will always make sure that we have an ongoing and active two-way communications to truly reflect the will of the students, families, and the residents in the decision-making. As a board member, I always make sure that our #1 goal is the academic excellence for our students. And I really appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dronen.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to all who are attending this forum. I also want to thank the caucus for selecting me as one of their 4 candidates, along with Kimberly, Avik, and Sally. It has been a privilege to sit on the board and serve you this past 4 years. If re-elected, I will continue to work hard and focus on what is best for all students. 3 board members with 29 years of collective school board experience are leaving the board this April. It takes time and experience to understand all the complex issues. I have extensive experience both locally and statewide. My top priorities are that New Trier fully resume on-site learning in a safe manner, all students achieve socially and emotionally as well as academically, and that New Trier continue in its efforts to create an environment where all students feel they belong. I will continue to promote strong financial stewardship and maintenance of our facilities. I ask for your support along with the other caucus candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Tomlinson.
I would ask you to consider these 4 characteristics. First, clear vision. My vision is to achieve the goals of the 2030 strategic plan that I worked on for the better part of a year. I don't have a single issue agenda. My goal is to see that plan become a reality. Second, strong communication skills. Aside from spending a decade in advertising, refining my communication skills, I've demonstrated my commitment to community outreach by the 16 Zoom calls I've participated in, by my discussions with current board members, administrators, parent leaders, and students, and I will continue to listen to all stakeholders in our community. Financial acuity. Aside from having an MBA and work experience with large budgets, I'm willing to spend the time doing the deep dive into all factors at play in setting the budget each year. And finally, motivation. I will keep the students at heart. My kids are done with high school, but I still believe firmly that one of the greatest gifts we can give our young people is a strong education. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to earn your support.
Thank you. Candidate Alcantara.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Wilmette. Special thanks to Voter Services Chair Jen Manning, Communications Chairs Ann Sullivan and Emmy Gergenti, Wilmette Library's Jill McEwen, and to our moderator, Kathy Tate-Bradish. And thank you to those voters that submitted questions and that have tuned in to listen today. I've really appreciated the opportunity to participate in this forum, which has been a longstanding fixture in this community's local elections. If I'm elected as a New Trier School Board member, my focus will be on helping to ensure the excellence in education and the responsible financial stewardship that our taxpayers, students, and parents expect and deserve from one of our community's most valuable assets, New Trier High School. You can learn more about me and the other 3 caucus endorsed candidates at top4newtrier.com. We are the first 4 names on the ballot for New Trier School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, good. Cindy's on. She'll follow me. I want to thank everyone so much. It is so tough these days, and everyone here in this panel and the previous panel sitting in the audience knows it. It's really hard to be a candidate in today's climate. And I applaud people who are willing for office. You are really the people who are in the arena. So everybody out there, even if you didn't applaud with us before in your kitchen or your bedroom, or if you're hiding out from the kids in the bathroom, just let's give some applause, and everybody here, applaud yourselves, please. So many thanks to the League of Women Voters of Wilmette, who have been a pleasure to work with, and the Wilmette Public Library. Also such a pleasure, so well organized, really dedicated. You know, we do practices and, you know, imagine the flurry of emails getting this all organized. League members just really roll their sleeves up and do the grassroots work of democracy. And these voter forums are such an excellent example of it. And think about it. They got a date after consulting with candidates. They got in touch with all of the candidates. Sometimes that's not the easiest thing in the world. They communicated clearly. They liaised with the library to handle technology. They solicited questions from the community. They sat down and prioritized those questions and hoped that their moderator would say all of them correctly. And I almost posted, 97%. And the publicity was all done by league volunteers. So really another round of applause, because all of this is volunteer work. Now I'll turn it over to the excellent president of the League of Women Voters of Wilmette.
I have very little to add after that, but thank you everyone for joining us this morning. And thank you again to the library and our moderator, and of course to all of our candidates today as well as last week. The video for this week's webinar will be available on our website probably in the next several days, so you can look for it there and share it with others. And just a reminder that early voting begins this Monday, the 22nd at Centennial. So please, everybody, make a plan to vote, encourage your friends, neighbors, family to vote. Democracy really depends on an informed and engaged electorate, and we'd like to see a really high voter turnout this year. So thank you again to everybody for participating.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll say quickly, sorry for misleading you out there. Only the candidates were able to move the Zoom boxes around, but if you're on Zoom and not a Zoom webinar, you can do it yourself. So give it a try in your free time.
Great. Thanks everyone so much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.